about Minnie the Moocher. She was a low-down hoochie coocher. She was the roughest, toughest frail, but Minnie had a heart as big as a whale. Hoody, 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 hoo, hoody, 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 hoo. Roddy, roddy, raw, roddy, roddy, raw, teedy, heedy, heedy, hee, teedy, heedy, hee. But Minnie had a heart as big as a whale.
You know, I can't help feeling, Jeeves, that I could do better justice to this song if I understood what the words meant.
Oh, I doubt that, sir.
I mean, all this hody-hody-ho stuff is pretty clear, but what do you suppose a hoochie-coocher is exactly?
It's difficult to say, sir, unless it's in connection with one of the demotic American words for ardent spirits. I'm thinking of hooch, a word of Eskimo origin, I'm informed.
You bally well are informed, Jeeves. Do you know everything?
I really don't know, sir.
Suppose what Oscar believed in as he died, in spite of your protestations, suppose it's all true, and you walk up to the pearly gates and you are confronted by God. What will Stephen Fry say to him, her, or it?
I will basically, what's known as theodicy, I think. I'll say bone cancer in children? What's that about? How dare you? How dare you create a world in which there is such misery that is not our fault? It's not right. It's utterly, utterly evil. Why should I respect a capricious, mean-minded, stupid God who creates a world which is so full of injustice and pain? That's what I'd say.
And you think you're going to get in on that?
No, but I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to get in on his terms. They're wrong. Now, if I died and it was Pluto, Hades, and if it was the 12 Greek gods, then I would have more truck with it, because the Greeks they didn't pretend not to be human in their appetites and in their capriciousness and in their unreasonableness. They didn't present themselves as being all-seeing, all-wise, all-kind, all-beneficent. Because the God who created this universe, if it was created by God, is quite clearly a maniac, utter maniac, totally selfish. We have to spend our life on our knees thanking him? What kind of God would do that? Yes, the world is very splendid, but it also has in it insects whose whole life cycle is to burrow into the eyes of children and make them blind. They eat outwards from the eyes. Why? Why did you do that to us? You could easily have made a creation in which that didn't exist. It is simply not acceptable. So, atheism is not just about not believing there's a God, but on the assumption that there is one. What kind of God is he? It's perfectly apparent that he is monstrous, utterly monstrous, and deserves no respect whatsoever. The moment you banish him, your life becomes simpler, purer, cleaner, more worth living, in my opinion.
That sure is the longest answer to that question that I ever got in this entire series.
I am the victim of my own moods, more than most people are, perhaps, inasmuch as I have a condition which requires me to take medication so that I don't get either too hyper or too depressed to the point of suicide. I go as far as to tell you that I attended it last year, so that I'm not always happy. It's the first time I've said this in public, but I thought I might as well. I'm president of Mind, and the whole point is, in my role, as I see it, is not to be shy and forthcoming about the morbidity and the genuine nature of the likelihood of death amongst people with certain mood disorders, if they don't look after it, if they think they can do without the medication or the regular visits to a doctor, and without taking care of themselves. And it was a close-run thing. I took a huge number of pills with a huge number of vodka, and the mixture of them made my body convulse so much that I broke 4 ribs, but I was still unconscious. Unfortunately, the producer I was filming at the time came into the hotel room, and I was found in a sort of unconscious state and taken back to England and looked after. Now, you may say, how can anybody who's got it all be so stupid as to want to end it all? That's the point. There's no why. It's not the right question. There's no reason. If there were a reason for it, you could reason someone out of it, and you could tell them why they shouldn't take their own life. And some of the most brilliant minds there have been have taken their lives, writers, artists, and people who are not particularly famous but are wonderful people. I like to think that if I had children, I would think harder about doing it, but I know people who have children who've done it, or did know people who've had children who've taken their own lives. Sometimes it's the expression I imagine on my mother and father's face, both of whom are alive and happy, that stops me. But there are other occasions when I can't stop myself, or at least I feel I can't. And you may say, well, that's what friends are for. You talked about Hugh, and why didn't you just call him up? And all my friends, when they heard about this, and family, when they eventually heard about it, came to visit me in the hospital, said, why didn't you call?
With my razor. My God, I've never shaved in an environment like this.
Bear and Stephen have conflicting beliefs, and the sublime surroundings seem a good place to air them.
I suppose a man of faith like you, this probably restores your faith in the creation, or a creator.
Yeah, I think so. I always find it's like a spiritual defrag.
Yes.
You know, I sometimes lose that in the busyness of everyday life.
I mean, I am an atheist, or I call myself a humanist, because I do have a belief, and that is in our own capacity to solve our problems and to find out more about the world and the universe around us. But just because one says, well, I don't believe there's a single God who made it, doesn't mean one has to offer an explanation as to what did make it. Because if you do believe there's a single God who made it, you have to offer an explanation as to who made that God. And so the argument continues.
You know, I went to school, and, you know, religion was presented in a way where it was all very cold and impersonal and judgmental, and it's taken me an awful long time in mountains like this to realise, actually, for me, my Christian faith is much more intimate and stumbling and awkward and personal, and I still somehow feel that in this difficult life, we're loved.
Yes.
And it's a bit like swimming, you know, you kind of, you can feel it all around you, and you know it's holding you up, but it's hard to describe it if you never swum. But it's actually been the greatest strength in my life, you know.
But I'm all for that. I get very embarrassed and ashamed of my fellow atheists who are mocking of people who have faith. To me, an individually devout, pious person is a very beautiful thing. Coming into a church, putting in flowers to remember your family and your ancestors.
I have a strange belief in heaven. Just I think I really love to see my dad again.
That's I can understand that. But to me, because we have history, you have all your dead ancestors alive in your mind. I have my beloved grandfather alive in my mind, and I don't need to die to be with him. I suppose there's a danger of getting very pretentious when you're in a vast landscape like this, because it does make you think all the imponderable questions come tumbling into your mind, don't they?
For me to thank Brian, Sue, Ross and Alan, and to leave you with this observation from Will Rogers. An ignorant person is one who doesn't know what you have only just found out. Good night.